Hey everybody, as requested, here is a quick Outlaw Rogue guide. Well, I hope it's going to be quick. We'll see, I guess. But let's start off with the basics. Talents and conduits and stuff like that. So, as far as Covenant choice goes, I definitely recommend Venthyr overall because Flagellation works very well with Dreadblades and Adrenaline Rush. You can, with really fast globals and maxing out your combo points with Dreadblades constantly, you can get the most. You can get that 30 stacks of Flagellation very quickly, and also it will do a lot of shadow damage. So I do recommend Venthyr. The other ones are just pretty lackluster and don't really synergize with Outlaw very well. Door of Shadows isn't exceedingly useful for a rogue, but you'll just have to make that trade, although like Necrolord's Massive Shield would be more useful as far as the base Covenant ability. Flagellation compared to Bone Spike is a pretty big difference. I think it adds to our burst and straight rundown potential a lot. So highly recommend Venthyr right now. As far as conduits go, and Soulbind, Nausea is definitely the best one. The others are kind of garbo. And conduits. So you're going to want 3 potency conduits, in my opinion. It's not the end of the world if you took 1 less potency conduit, but I think the other options, although we have some really good, rogues actually have some really good finesse and endurance conduits. You're pretty much going to get 1 finesse, 2 endurance like this, and then 3 potency. So it's a pretty good path. So Lashing Scars for sure. This adds a lot of damage to Flagellation. I mean, I've had Flagellations crit, like when you spend 6 combo points, it'll crit for like, I don't know, 6k, 5k, something like that. Yeah, so that's pretty substantial. And then, secondly, I like Rush Setup. It's not super insanely useful by any means. I've always been kind of torn between like Rush Setup or Prepared for All, because now that we can reduce with this Honor talent, the ability to reduce Feint and Evasion cooldown, Prepared for All can be very nice, but the problem is usually in Arena, specifically, once you pop Evasion, most people aren't going to attack into it. And the second portion of Prepared for All, you're only going to reduce so much off of Cloak. It's not useless, but you might reduce 15-20 seconds off of it on average, but I don't think it's better than the amount of energy you save from Rush Setup, because there are little patches of energy starvation here and there that do happen. So having Kidney Shot and Cheap Shot and Sap and all that cost less energy is nice. You definitely feel it, so I would recommend that, but it's not like a game changer or anything. Endurance, you obviously want Cloaked in Shadows. Even though it's nerfed, it's still very useful. Buys you 4 extra seconds before you get pulled out of stealth, so you can wait a little bit longer, and there's other uses for it as well. And then Sleight of Hand, highly recommend. In PvE, the Potency Conduit, Count the Odds, is like the best one, but in PvP I don't think it's as effective because it's only 5 seconds that you'll proc an extra buff, and a lot of the time when that happens, you're going to get CC'd anyway, and you're not going to get the full value of that 5 seconds. So in a PvE setting where you're just never CC'd basically and you're doing max damage, sure, it's good. But in PvP, I think Sleight of Hand, you definitely notice how much more you roll double matches with Roll the Bones, and getting double matches is pretty huge a lot of the time. Just increases your odds of getting really dank buffs. And then Triple Threat, I think, is pretty good. I don't actually know how much DPS this adds, but you can notice when you're chain procking it, like especially during Adrenaline Rush and stuff, and you're spam Slice and Dicing, or Sinister Striking rather, you can definitely feel all those extra quad swings that are popping off. So I think it's pretty good. I don't think Triple Threat is like massive or anything, but since you can only put a Potency Conduit here, I think it's worth it. You could sure give up another Potency Conduit if you didn't want it and you'd rather have another Finesse or Endurance Conduit, because Condensed Animosphere is not bad and Recuperator is also something, but I don't think either of them are I don't think any of them are game changers really. So and this is pretty mediocre, these other buffs, so I don't think it's necessarily worth giving it up. And then I put Nimble Fingers, and the main reason for this is because with the new PvP talent, we reduce the cooldown of Feint whenever we spend combo points, which is costly. I mean, 35, you can keep Feint up all the time basically, like very often. So having it cost 10 less energy, this is probably the most impactful of the non-potency conduits for sure. I definitely feel it when I use Nimble Fingers. It's just way less expensive to keep Feint up, so highly recommend. So that's it for Conduits and Covenants. As far as Talents goes, Quick Draw definitely, because I'll get into the Legendary, but I think for the most part, like in PvE, I believe Ghostly Strike is where you go. But Quick Draw synergizes with Greenskin Wickers, and it just adds to your basic damage rotation, combo points, and damage, so it's definitely the way to go. Acrobatic Strikes is so good. Having 8-yard range melee helps you deal with, first of all, laggy fast targets. Being able to just hit them with a broader range feels amazing. And also when you do things like Focus Kick or Focus Gouge from 8 yards away, oh, it feels so good, you know? The 8-yard melee range, I don't know how I ever lived without it, honestly. And some people ask, like, what about Retractable Hook, man? You can, you know, grapple so much more often and faster and all that. And I'm not saying it's a bad talent, but Acrobatic Strikes is definitely better, in my opinion. We reduce the cooldown of grapple enough by spending combo points that I rarely feel like, oh, I really wish I had 15 seconds off that ability right now. And if you coupled this with the other conduit that takes even more seconds off of it, it could be, you know, nice as far as mobility goes. But the 8-yard range, I cannot stress enough how godly it feels. I play with Deeper Stratagem just because we generate and spam so many combo points. We have so many modifiers like Double Sinister Striking, Broadside buff, and the Pistol Shot, Quick Draw. We generate so many combo points. It's really easy to max out combo points, so you might as well go for the 7-second kidney shots and just bigger dispatches and stuff like that. It feels really good to have. And then Elusiveness is definitely obvious because we can, with this talent, reduce Feint's cooldown, so this is just, you gotta have it. For Arena specifically, but just mostly in general, Blinding Powder is amazing. It takes 30 seconds off the blind cooldown, so it's no longer synced with people's trinkets. So you can blind somebody, get their trinket, and then a minute and a half later blind them again with no trinket and get a kill off of that a lot of the time. Yeah, if you're going to do anything PvE related, you could swap to Prey on the Weak, or if for some reason you don't need longer range blind cooldowns. But Prey on the Weak is only 5% in PvP, so Blinding Powder is the way to go. I used to use Alacrity just because it was just a passive haste buff, which was nice, but with Venthyr and the way it synergizes with Flagellation, Dreadblades is amazing with Flagellation. You're just constantly, I mean, just in general, during Adrenaline Rush with Dreadblades and Flag, you're going to do a lot of, I want to say burst. It's burst, it's not all at once. It's not like a 24k Mortal Strike type of burst, but it's going to be like a global to global huge burst. Every other global you're going to do, like if you crit a dispatch for 9k and then you hit a flag for like, you know, 5k or something, it's a lot of damage each time you use a finisher. And it also makes it more valuable too with Flagellation, since this works with any finishers, any combo points you spend. Even things like refreshing Slice and Dice and hitting somebody with a kidney shot is going to lash the target. So it makes your non-damaging finishers also do damage, so it's just really nice. So Dreadblades syncs perfectly with Flagellation because they're both a minute and a half cooldown. And when you got Adrenaline Rush up and you've got those fast GCDs and everything, you can pop off pretty hard. I used to use Killing Spree all the time, mostly as a root breaker, which is super handy. It also rejuvenates energy very quickly, right? So Blade Rush gives you energy, and Killing Spree also gives you energy because while you're using it, you're just passively building energy, but it's also offhand strikes as well, which is going to proc energy. So it's very rare that I Killing Spree and don't fill up my energy bar, even if it's 0. So I'm still torn on this talent choice. The main thing I like about Blade Rush is the shorter cooldown, and it acts like extra mobility because it will dash you to the target. So I find utility in that sometimes against like heavy kiting targets like mages and stuff. So I do like that. Plus it gives you energy over time. But I think they're both good talents for different reasons. Killing Spree breaking roots and snares is super nice. It doesn't even say that in the tooltip, but it does. So, like, let's say a mage Frost Novas you, and you instantly press Killing Spree before he gets out of range, then you just break the Nova while doing damage and replenishing your energy, right? But the downside is it's a fairly long cooldown. So with this, I don't think it's a huge choice, but I've just been using Blade Rush lately. Honor talents, when it comes to arena or any prolonged battles, like even BGs or RBGs where you're going to have longer fights, Enduring Brawler is super good. It's going to increase the rate in which you double Sinister Strike, which can be crucial at times, especially if you're fishing for that pistol shot proc to couple with your legendary Greenskin Wickers. So every once in a while you'll get really bad RNG and you just can't get a double Sinister Strike for the pistol shot proc, which you need to do max damage with Greenskin. So Enduring Brawler is really nice because if the fight lasts, if you're in combat for a minute, it fully stacks. You get 20% more stamina, which is really great to help for survivability. You get caught in a stun with Feint Up with 20% extra health. I haven't really ever died pre-fainting a stun, especially with this stacked. So, and Float Like a Butterfly is amazing. Even if you don't need the evasion cooldown reduction, this is still a really good talent, even against like Wizard Cleaves, where evasion is useless, just because being able to keep Feint Up all the time, especially if you can predict you're about to get stunned, it gives you so much defensive power with elusiveness. So these two I almost never change. Enduring Brawler and Float Like a Butterfly, I almost never change them. And the third talent is the one that I'm torn on the most. So generally speaking, you'll take Dismantle if you need to disarm against, you know, warriors, demon hunters, survival or marksman hunters. I mean, it affects BM hunters to an extent, but I don't think it's as significant. You know, it's even decent against rep paladins and stuff, but if you ever need to disarm, I say Dismantle is probably the go-to. But if you don't really need to disarm, the other good options are Control is King, Maneuverability, and Take Your Cut. These are all really good options if you don't need the rest. Even Smoke Bomb definitely has its place at times. But I like Take Your Cut. They buffed it. It's the same amount of haste, but every time it doesn't say it in the tooltip either. It works with Slice and Dice. So even if you Slice and Dice, you're going to get the haste buff. It's not just rolling the bones. So you'll see here I Slice and Dice and you get Take Your Cut. And then you roll the bones and you get Take Your Cut. And all your teammates in 15-yard range instead of 8 yards, which it used to be, get 15% haste as well. And haste is a very valuable stat. Now, for the rogue himself, the haste isn't like insane because we're already stacking haste and we have a decent amount. Like I don't think when you get this haste you feel like it's not like an adrenaline rush or anything, right? But it is useful and it can greatly benefit your teammates depending on how often you can be near them to give them this buff. If you're mindful of it, you can empower your teammates quite a bit. If you need extra mobility, let's say you're fighting, you know, DKs and you're just gonna be Chains of Ice all game, or mages and you want another root break for Frost Novas, stuff like that. Maneuverability is really nice now because it removes all roots and it suppresses snares. So it won't remove a Chains of Ice, but it'll at least suppress it so you can, you know, connect to your target at crucial moments. And it's very handy now that they buffed it as a root breaker. Control is King is nice, but I'm really not a big fan of it in Arena. It's more fun and useful in, say, Battlegrounds, where you're just kind of going from target to target all game and re-stealthing and opening a lot. But in Arenas, you're not going to get many cheap shots because you're staying in combat, just brawling the whole time, right? Thus, Enduring Brawler is good. So you're not going to get the benefit of the Slice and Dice from this very much. This is really just going to give you a bunch of energy when you kidney shot, which can be useful. But the thing is a lot of the time you're kidney shotting, you're not energy starved enough to matter. Sometimes you kidney shot and you're hitting one of those, you know, sporadic waves where you do need energy and you kidney shot somebody and you're just not generating enough energy at the time. So it is handy for that, but I don't think it outweighs the utility of other talents. So, for instance, like Take Your Cut is more haste, which is energy regen, and more attack speed, which will proc more energy regen from offhand attacks. Plus it benefits your teammates. So like if I had to choose between these two, I would take Your Cut just because it benefits my allies so much. And, you know, maneuverability is so good, disarm is so good. I almost never take Control as King, even though I like it, just because there's better options. The legendary Greenskin Wickers. I think this is the best one by far. I used to be torn on it before I got to play with it enough, but I will tell you, whenever I play Arenas and I look at my details breakdown, even though you don't pistol shot a whole lot, just the amount of damage that it gets amplified is pretty insane. I've gotten in Arena against fully geared targets, the highest I've seen so far is a 19.5k pistol shot against a mage. And it's not uncommon to see anywhere between, depending on the armor and how defensive the class is, I mean, you can get 10 to 13k like pistol shot crits on a warrior. And it benefits from broadside, so if you have the broadside buff, you're going to do 20% more damage with the pistol shot anyway. So I've seen consistent, you know, 15k, 16ks on squishier targets like rogues, mages, cat, you know, form ferals, stuff like that. So it's a heavy hitter. It adds random sporadic burst. I say random as in it's random for the enemy because they don't necessarily pay attention to when it's coming, but it's more on demand for you. You know when you press between the eyes and you have a pistol shot proc, you're about to chunk somebody pretty hard. So I think it's amazing. And if I look at my details breakdown at the end of a match, pistol shot is going to be in my top 3 and very often first place damage. So it's turning a normal low damage ability into a heavy hitting ability. And you can use it so often because you can reset the cooldown on between the eyes so quickly. And so I'm going to press flag here, right? I popped Adrenaline Rush, there's between the eyes. Fishing for a pistol shot proc while doing tons of damage with finishers. Not getting the pistol shot proc yet. Unfortunate. Sometimes you do. But look, between the eyes is already reset before I can even use it, thanks to Dread Blades and Adrenaline Rush. There it is, 7,900 on this dummy, and I can do another one. So here we go, another one. Boom, 16k crit. And these target dummies have pretty high level armor, you know, compared to like a rogue or a mage player. So the amount of damage that pistol shot can do after between the eyes is massive. It just sporadically chunks people and they don't see it coming. And it's going to add, and here's the beauty of it, you don't have to change your damage rotation at all other than holding pistol shot once you get the buff. Like if you between the eyes but you don't have the pistol shot proc, you have to save it, you know. That's the only way it might change your damage rotation. Maybe you want to pistol shot somebody because you're disarmed and you can still pistol shot while disarmed. You might not want to do that if you already used between the eyes because you need a proc to maximize the damage. You don't want to get like a 2k pistol shot when you can get like an 8k non-crit pistol shot. So it basically doesn't change your damage rotation at all. It just amplifies your normal damage rotation. So it's just a net damage gain. It's a net DPS and net burst gain without really having to change your playstyle at all. So I think it's phenomenal. It adds so much damage and it feels very powerful, so highly recommend. And as far as stats, versatility is what you want the most, obviously, and then haste would be second most. Everything else after that with PvP gearing doesn't really matter. Crit, I think, is probably better than mastery, but you're not really aiming to get crit or mastery. So versatility and then haste would be your priority. So yeah, that's about it as far as how to set up your character. As far as actual gameplay guidance goes, I might make guides for that later, but that'll be something in the future. I can show a lot of these things I've discussed, the talents and how useful they are with actual gameplay, and point them out later. But we'll just make this a bare bones, set up your character guide. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you found this informative. Sorry it went a little bit longer than I wanted, but yeah, I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching, and peace out.